So I'd like to now introduce you to Gina Davidson. Gina's our self-managed super fund specialist at Sondergaard Accountants. So please feel free to contact her after the event. Now, she's a chartered tax advisor, financial planner, and heads up our SMSF specialist division. Okay, she was a 2018 finalist in the Accountants Daily Australian Accounting Awards as a superannuation specialist accountant. So very passionate about self-managed super funds and a lot of expertise, and I enjoy working with Gina. So she'll update you on how to make your self-managed super fund your great nest egg. Over to you, Gina. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Charles, for the introduction, and thank you to all for coming tonight. It's great to see you all here. I've gone through life since age 14, always being told I'm tall for a woman, and then I come here tonight and I find I can't get up on the stage without steps because I'm too short. But that's life. So before we get started, you probably have heard this before, but everything I say tonight is for education and general information purposes only. It is not meant to be personal, legal, or financial advice. And before you act on anything that I'm telling you tonight, you should see a qualified and licensed superannuation specialist and tax specialist, such as myself, so that we can take into account your personal circumstances. We've had the federal budget last month, and as almost every year, there have been some changes to superannuation. So let's all buckle in for a wild ride through the changes. The first one, from 1st of July 2019, it is proposed that self-managed super funds can now have up to 6 members. So at the moment, they can have up to 4, and the little family on the screen has 5 people. So if they grow a bit more and get another one in, you can have up to 6 now in your SMSF if this proposal, if this proposal becomes law. Then if you're an employee and you have more than one employer and your total wages are in excess of $263,157, very precise number there. If that applies to you, then in future you may be able to nominate that wages from certain employers don't count towards the superannuation guarantee. And then what that means is that those super contributions are paid to you as part of your salary, and it means that you don't breach the concessional contributions cap of $25,000. This year was an exciting year for some of us. Up until now, if you were an employee, you could generally only increase your concessional contributions by salary sacrificing. But this year, that all changed. From the 1st of July last year, people like myself can make personal concessional contributions just from our own money into the super fund and then claim a tax deduction in our personal tax return. So the ATO has got worried that a lot of us are doing this. We are we're claiming the deduction in our personal tax return, we're putting money in the super fund, and maybe we don't tell the super fund that they are concessional contributions, and then the super fund isn't paying the 15% tax. So the ATO have been given $3.1 million so that they can check up on all of us and make sure we're doing it right. So they are coming for you, and you've been warned tonight. So if you're a Sondergaard client, I'm obviously looking after your paperwork, nothing to worry about. But if you're not, then you must make sure, first of all, that you have lodged with your super fund a notice of intent that you want to claim a tax deduction in your personal tax return for those contributions. You must have had a reply from the super fund trustee to say, yeah, that's fine, we accept that. If you are in an SMSF, there's also a resolution that has to be in place. And then in your personal tax return, you have to tick a box saying, I've got all the paperwork in order. If not, they're coming after you. You've been warned. The next 2 slides are about the measures in the budget that are meant to protect your super. So the first one is, before I start on what it is, some of you here might already have a self-managed super fund. But when you set it up, perhaps you were not able to also set up an insurance policy in your super fund. Perhaps you or another member in the super fund had an illness, let's say breast cancer, prostate cancer, really common nowadays. You're fine now, But this is only a year or two ago, and so you weren't able to get a new insurance policy. If you wanted your life and TPD insurance policy in place, you had to stay with your old insurer for another 3 to 5 years, and then you can get a new policy. So that what you might have done is leave some money behind in your previous industry or retail fund. Usually we leave $5,000 behind because they insist that's the minimum you have to leave behind if you do that. And the rest we rolled over into your self-managed super fund. So there's this little balance sitting there, and we are running it down. We're not making any contributions to that fund. We're just running it down to pay the insurance premiums. Well, under these new proposals, you've got to watch out. Because first of all, if you have a super fund with less than $6,000 in it, it goes off to the ATO. That's it. So if there's your little insurance pot, it's gone. If you don't notice when they send you the paperwork and you put that somewhere or it gets lost or whatever. The other thing is that, let's say you've noticed the paperwork and you know it's not gone off to the ATO, but if it's a balance of less than $6,000, insurance now becomes an opt-in process. So most industry and retail super funds, insurance is a default. So you join them, and every month they take money for life insurance and TPD. From now on, if your balance is less than $6,000, this becomes an opt-in. So if you have your SMSF here, and there's a little bit over there to pay your insurance premiums, and they send you the paperwork to opt in, and you forget to send it back, no more insurance. Until you get past your 3 or 5 years when you can have a new insurance policy. So whilst at the first sight you might think that's nothing to do with me, I'm not under 25 and I've got my nice self-managed super fund here. As I said, if you're one of those people who has an insurance policy paid somewhere else, then watch out for this one. Bun exit fees on all superannuation accounts. That might be of interest to the people in the room who are currently thinking about setting up a self-managed super fund. I don't know of any industry super funds who charge exit fees, but retail super funds often do. And I've seen one, not mentioning any names tonight, who charge $3,000 if you want to do a rollover. So it's great that in future this may be banned if this proposal becomes law. The next one, 3% annual cap on passive fees charged by the superannuation fund if your balance is less than $6,000. Now the reason I've put that up is you will have your self-managed super fund and you might have $300,000 in it, so it doesn't affect you. But if you're thinking about setting up a self-managed super fund, and if you've read some scare stories in the press about the fees in a self-managed super fund, just imagine this. If you currently have $300,000 in your retail fund, if they charge you 3% fees, you're paying them $9,000 a year. And considering that there's a proposal to cap fees, that must mean that lots of them actually charge more than 3%. So if they charge you 4% on $300,000, that's $12,000 a year in fees. Now I can assure you, self-managed super funds don't cost that much annually. Yeah, if you have a $300,000 super fund, and if I estimate the kind of activities that might be in there in a year, the fee is $3,500. Even if we add in the audit fee and the ASIC fee and the ATO annual levy, we creep up to $4,500. That's a long way below $9,000 or $12,000. So if you're thinking about setting up a self-managed super fund, don't necessarily believe the scare stories in the press about the terrible fees in SMSF. Come and talk to somebody like me. We take into account all the other issues that we need to consider before setting one up, but that's just fees is just one point. The other thing at the bottom says that the ATO will expand their data matching exercises to reunite people with their lost super. So if you still have a little super fund hanging around somewhere that you didn't know about, hopefully you will hear about it before too long. Currently, if you're over age 65 and you want to make voluntary contributions to your super fund, you need to pass the work test. Now, it isn't as bad as it sounds. It just means that in a 30-day period, you must have worked for a minimum of 40, that's 40 hours, and that's the work test. Once you've passed that, as you're over age 65 and under age 75, you can make voluntary contributions into your super fund. What this proposal says is if you're over age 65 and your super balance is $300,000 or less, then in the first year that you fail the work test, so in the first year where you don't work at all, they will still allow you to make voluntary contributions into your super fund within the contribution cap limits. This one had a lot of my SMSF clients really excited. So it says that if you had a clean audit report for 3 years, and for 3 years you've lodged your SMSF tax return in a timely manner, meaning by the deadline, then you only need an audit every 3 years. And a lot of my clients were, yes, save myself that $500 a year. It's not really going to work out like that. Because if you imagine, in year 1, you don't have to do your audit, but you bought yourself a property in the super fund, and you've got a mortgage there. In year 2, you do some exchange-traded funds, you get yourself an account with the Perth Mint, all kinds of things. Year 3, you carry on your merry way. At the end of year 3, the auditor comes along. He isn't just going to look at year 3 and what you've been doing in there, because he wants to look all what's happened through all 3 years. So all that's going to happen is that in year 3, you're going to pay for 3 years. It's not much of a difference, really. So don't get too excited about that one. Right, so that was a galloping ride to the changes in the superannuation that have been proposed in the last budget. Now, we've been doing these talks, these annual events now for 6 years, and every year except one, there have been proposals to change the superannuation environment in the budget. And when I speak to people one-on-one, especially people who don't have an SMSF just yet, what I often hear is, super changes all the time, too complicated. I'm keeping my savings outside of super where I can see them and I know exactly where they are. So tonight I wanted to look again as to what is the benefit of having savings inside of super versus having them outside of super. And my example couple, Trent and Miriam, totally made up, not one of my clients, they have taxable income over $87,000 and below $180,000 in their personal lives. That means their top tax rate is 37% plus 2% Medicare. So from now on, I'm just going to call it 39%. That is their top tax rate. For every additional dollar that they get in investment income from their savings, be that bank interest, dividend income, or whatever, they have to hand to the taxman 39 cents. If they're saving inside of super, they hand to the taxman 15% until they get to retirement, and then 0% for most people. There will be some people who have to pay a little bit of tax in retirement, but it's way less than 15. So it's either 15 or 0. So we're looking at that and seeing, is it worthwhile saving in super? Does it make actually a big difference, this tax differential, over 25 years? We're going to see what happens. So these are our sort of parameters. We have Trent and Miriam. They're currently age 40, and they have $150,000 in super. Now, you all know that I picked those numbers deliberately to make them up to what I want the outcome to be, right? Because you know I'm going to try and make a point here. But joking aside, there are actually also some sensible reasons, or some other sensible reasons for these numbers. I know there are probably a lot of people here in the audience who've come to Australia from overseas, and you therefore may have some fairly modest super fund balances. If you've born in Australia, and you've been working since 1992 when we started compulsory super, then at age 40 you will have a much higher balance. But if you came from overseas, it may be quite modest. In the audience here, I will also have some people who are self-employed. And self-employed people in the early years of running their business often don't contribute to super. So again, you may have quite a modest super fund balance. So Trent and Miriam, 150,000, age 40. Going forward, that balance will grow at 5% per annum, which is also very modest investment growth. Every year from now on, for the next 25 years until age 65, they're going to put in $9,500 every year. That's either because Trent is an employee and earns $100,000 and 9.5% is $9,500, and the poor guy is not getting any pay rises for the next 25 years in my little world here. Or maybe he's self-employed and he just decides that's what we're going to do. Every year, $9,500 into super for the next 25 years. So before I turn over to the next slide, I want you to have a little think on your own and have a guess. How much will their nest egg grow over the next 25 years? And how much tax will they save by saving in super as opposed to saving outside of super and paying that 39% tax rate? So as I've been saying this, you've all got a couple of numbers in your head. Let's see how close you are. At age 65, their little nest egg has grown to $874,200. Starting at $150,000 age 40, adding 9.5 every year. 150 grew at 5%, the rest only at 3%. $874,200. And they saved themselves $114,530 on those very modest numbers. So if in the room here you are lucky and your numbers are much bigger, obviously your tax saving is also going to be much bigger. The next question then, is that enough? What is it going to get us? What are Trent and Miriam getting when they're at age 65 and this is what they've saved up? So I'm not an actuary, so I can't work that out. So I looked at the government website and I looked at their Money Smart calculator. And the answer was, if this is your nest egg, $874,200, then your annual income is going to be $60,827 from age 65 to 90. This assumes that over those 25 years now, from 65 to 90, inflation will be 2% per annum, and there'll be an additional rise in the cost of living standard of 1%. And your investment growth is, again, a very modest 3.8%. So on that basis, you're going to have $60,827, age 65 to 90. Is that enough? Well, there's another helpful website to help me, because I'm not an actuary, and that's the Association of Superannuation Funds Australia. Their calculator says that with a slightly lower number, $60,264 per annum, you can live a comfortable lifestyle, provided all your debts are paid off at age 65 and your kids have left home. They didn't come back, like I know some do. That means a comfortable lifestyle means over 20 years you can renovate your kitchen or bathroom once. You can have nice appliances at home and you can afford nice haircuts. You can afford to run the air conditioning in the summer and in the winter keep it warm. You can eat out in nice restaurants now and then. You can afford fast internet. You can afford a good mobile plan with a large talk allowance and data allowance. You can wear decent clothes. You can afford domestic and international holidays now and then. You can have top-level healthcare. You will have a reasonable car, and you can participate in leisure activities on a regular basis that cost money. You know, play golf or something like that. So that's what you can afford according to their website on $60,264. So is super still worth it, and how much do we need? Well, you can see even with quite modest numbers, you can actually grow a reasonably sized nest egg. And by having the savings in super, at the 15% tax rate, as opposed to a 39% tax rate outside, or if you are a higher earner, it might be even higher, your nest egg is considerably bigger than if you had it outside of super. So you can relax like this guy in his sun lounger. So saving in super is definitely worth it, and it maximizes and leads to a better retirement outcome than having your savings outside of super. So use it or lose it. We have a lovely tax saving, maybe only pay 15%, use it.